Hello and welcome to our bonus review episode of Revoice 2025. I'm here with TJ Espinoza,
Hi everyone.
and this is David Frank. So, I've had the distinct pleasure of being at every Revoice, and
hmm
TJ is, it's his fault because he's the one who invited me to the first one.
Nice.
And he's been at most of them as well. And yeah, I was so pumped. Revoice was just held earlier this month in Seattle, Washington at University Presbyterian Church. And it was wonderful and special in a number of ways. And yeah, we just love to share a few of those for those who maybe also went. I think one caveat we can get is, there's 600 plus people at a conference, and there will be a 600 plus different experiences of that conference. So we can share mainly our two perspectives, maybe some of those of a couple of our friends who also went. Um, but coming in, we've had friends who was their first conference at Revoice, first Revoice conference, and it can be a lot, especially if it's people's first exposure to the side B community. There can be a lot of things to process of just, wow, I've never been around so many gay Christians, but also never been around so many gay Christians who love Jesus so much and are really trying to live a life of faithfulness to him. And that can be really disorienting to people, whether they're coming out of more conservative or more progressive spaces. And but I think it's was meaningful for everybody I talked to, even if there are personal challenges that come into it.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, agreed.
So
Again, for me,
go ahead, TJ.
this was like a family reunion at this point. I've been to Revoice enough that a lot of it is seeing friends and relatives that I don't often see just because we live in a different location. Yeah, and I just have to give a special shout out to our friend Wendia,
Mm-hmm.
who was one of the main stage speakers talking about his story and experience from Kenya. You can check out his episode from our past. We can put in the show notes, I think, as well. But yeah, it was my favorite, I think, of the main stage presentations. Yeah, so I was so glad an African was kind of centered and
Yeah,
talked and allowed to share his story.
he was episode 24 and his on our episode, and
Mhm.
something he said on the in his main stage plenary sparked a t-shirt and some memes
Yeah,
about what
I
are
know.
those gays doing. So maybe we'll
He's our
include a
meme
link to
maker.
that if you want to order that t-shirt as part of someone's
Yeah,
fundraiser.
yeah. It was great. So I really appreciated that. It's just a space to come together and for me now to relax and connect. It may be different if you're a new person, as you kind of alluded to,
Mm.
but yeah, it's just great. Yeah. We also talked about it was the worship team again was excellent,
Thank
led
you,
by Wes
Wes.
and
Thank
yeah,
you,
Wes and his
all
team.
the whole team that
Yeah.
I know put a lot of time and energy into it, including.
Yeah. Special shout out to Pastor Shalom, our friend who's also been on the podcast, who was one of the singers on the worship team.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. We have to appreciate Eden Invitation. Our friends
Oh
Anna
yeah.
and Shannon were honored as part of this year's. So praise God for them and their ministry. Also, a pretty prominent part of this year's time together was honoring Wes Hill. And
Mm-hmm.
because this was the year where Wes Hill's book Washed and Waiting, which was pretty influential for the Side B movement as a text, is 15 years, right? 15 years old
Yeah,
as a
yeah.
book now. Yep. So they honored Wes Hill and for that contribution, and they also sold special
Copies of the
versions of the
book
book
with
with
that
it.
had a little extra
Yeah.
cover flap on it.
Yeah. So that was cool too. Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. We had a small new kinship table right next to Eden Invitations table, which was sweet to be next to
hmm
our friends. And
Yeah.
we also did a kind of an interactive art, what do
Oh
you call
yeah.
it, at our table?
It was like exercise maybe.
Yeah,
And
I
exercise. Yeah.
think on the video version of this podcast, I might be able to throw up the picture of some of people. The prompt was, "What does kinship look like for you?" I think,
hmm
and so it was just really sweet to see people's artistic responses to that throughout the conference.
Yeah.
And Yeah, for as a little asterisk, when TJ said visit his relatives at the conference as a family reunion, if you went to his Kinship 101 workshop, which I don't know, will that be, do you know if that'll be released in audio form later?
I think no,
Oh,
but I'm not
okay.
sure yet.
Okay, we got to come to the conference, I guess.
No?
But TJ uses that word relative to describe the kinship bonds that he forms with people that are not necessarily blood relations, mostly not blood
Mhm.
relations. And so that is part of TJ's kinship network as he develops close friendships that become familial and important.
Yeah.
And I think that definitely was, even though we talk a lot, it was actually really great to go to your workshop and see a ton of your work
Thank
jam
you.
packed into this hour presentation and with really good Q&A
Yeah.
dialogue.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a lot of questions. And I was asked to tailor to a very certain audience, even though I don't, which was kind of straight ministry leaders, pastors, etc. But I think there were a lot of queer people in that space, side B people, actually.
Yeah, there's
So it
maybe a
was,
couple pastors, a couple parents,
yeah,
um,
yeah, yep.
but
So it's interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
More about your panel, David Frank. Also quite good, quite excellent. Well done. They put David Frank's panel on. It was called From Me to We, which is basically a panel describing multiple forms of intentional community. Often Christian intentional community, but in some examples not Christian intentional community. And yeah, we had some good friends, and they were great contributors. We
I was
had
really grateful for them.
David Frank and Elena represented like intentional Christian community, which was covenanted. And then there's a friend who lives in co-living situation where basically they bought an apartment, I guess, and but there's a community around that. We had another friend who was helping raise
Hmm.
her
Nephew.
niece or nephew with the husband of a recently deceased sibling.
No, actually not.
And
Well,
oh, sorry, tell the story or mention the reality.
yeah, there was her sister passed away recently,
Hmm.
and so
Hmm.
she's now one of the primary caretakers, and you could
Caregivers.
caregivers. So you can go and listen to a little bit more that was in the workshop, and then our friend who is in the process of restarting an intentional community and reforming kind of house agreements and house culture after
Yeah.
some difficult times. So it was really
Mm.
rich spectrum of experience, and the goal was to just practically inspire people about the different ways that they can take some initiative, put some intentionality into forming very practical your living situations in ways that extend beyond yourself and both maybe help address some of the loneliness of our age, but also are thinking about, who can we be more together than we are alone. And that one was on the stage, so there is a video recording already available up for if you buy access or
Oh,
have access
nice.
to the conference.
Hmm. Yeah. Can we talk about some things that we'd recommend for future Revoice goers to
Yeah.
like consider? One thing I want to mention is we this year we stayed in a house, a large house,
Mm-hmm.
with a lot of our friends and friends and new friends, old friends, new friends. And I like that. It was great. I really like that sort of style if you can get it. It did require getting the house pretty early. David Frank was looking for the house like a year ahead of time,
So,
basically.
and I want to note two things about Airbnbs that not everybody knows.
Hmm.
One, you
Hmm.
can negotiate with the Airbnb host. Not everybody
Hmm.
Airbnb host might be up for it, but we got like a
Yeah.
40% discount because I was
Nice.
early enough that I
Negotiated.
said,
Yeah.
"Hey, this other Airbnb's, this much cheaper. Can you match price? We like your location a little
Hmm.
bit better." And he did.
Hmm.
He gave it to us a
Nice.
lower price, and then he added an extra night on for a very cheap price. So it made it all
Awesome.
super affordable and a really great
Yeah.
hosting space. And then the second thing, basically every Airbnb will say no parties.
Mm.
Clarify with the host, what do you mean by that? Some hosts are very strict and they say, we literally want no one else entering these
Yeah.
premises except for the 5 guests
The
who are on the
guests.
list.
Yeah.
And others are
Hmm.
just like, don't be crazy. If you want to have some friends over for lunch, great, or dinner. So we
Hmm.
didn't have parties. We had fairly large gatherings at our Airbnb.
Yes. Gatherings.
Large gatherings. No publicly posted, just widely advertised gatherings. And our because I talked to the host and I was just like, "What do you expect?" And I've only gotten good reviews from all the Airbnbs I've been
Nice.
at. So just want to
Thank you for that
encourage.
wisdom.
And it's
Mhm.
conferences are big, and so get, trying to any of you who might have a little bit of hospitality gifting or experience, bless people by putting some energy into getting an Airbnb where you can have small gatherings, where you can invite some people where maybe they don't know as many other people. And it can just be a nice way to, make the conference experience a little smaller, a little more comfortable.
Excellent. One other thing that I really appreciate and I would recommend to people who are considering going to Revoice is try to participate in the affinity groups. They often happen during lunch, the lunch on the two main days, it's Thursday, Friday. But yeah, they're often a great place to make connections with people who are interested. They have they have groups on people who are pursuing different types of kinship, like communal living, one for people who are pursuing celibate partnerships, sort of relationships. They have groups that are formed around kind of racialized ethnic groups like Latino, Black, etc. They also have groups for people who are in ministry. There's a group for Catholics, there's a group for asexual people.
They
There's
had
just
one
lots of different
specifically
affinity
for
groups.
those who identify as same sex attracted pretty exclusively
Yeah.
and are more hesitant with the LGBTQ language.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, yeah, they're really trying to make it a space to connect with other folks with similar experiences or perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which are another way that the conference experience kind of can become a little bit smaller.
Yeah. Revoice is also a good place to linger. The conference is pretty intentionally designed to have lots of time around the meals, for
Mm-hmm.
example. So make sure you have meals with someone and like linger around and just chat, meet new
Mm-hmm.
people. I think that's an important part of the Revoice experience as
That
well.
being said, or in addition to that, lingering, and you might need to skip a session, skip a workshop to get some introvert
Hmm.
time or go and have just a smaller lingering conversation. I
Yeah.
didn't do that this year and I was so tired. In part just because there
Hmm.
were so many good speakers. I
Hmm.
didn't feel like I could skip a single beat. Whereas one of my friends, he intentionally came to Seattle and only got the conference for just Friday because he was like, I'm just gonna spend some vacation time in Seattle, do the conference thing hard for one day, and just made it a much simpler experience instead of burning himself out. So maybe you can also think creatively, know yourself, how much conference action time can you do? Do you want to pack it into a day? Do you want to just spread it out a little bit here and there? Um, and it is good to know that they try to put up a lot of recordings online for later, so some
Yeah.
of the content will be available. But it definitely is, yeah, so beautiful to worship together, to meet with people. I feel like I went into the conference already feeling a little frazzled and just like, oh Lord, there's what do you have for this week? And just the sense that the Lord had his blessings in store. He had his goodness, he was storing up, ready to dish out. And I think that happened. A lot of, yeah, just beautiful ways that God worked in different relationships and conversations, in every aspect of the conference time. The Lord was ministering to people, and yeah, so I'm just really grateful to the Lord for how He used that time in the midst of, every all of us. All we can do is just plant and water and see what growth the Lord gives, and um, that week was definitely a time for that. And for us, that week involved not just the Revoice conference that Wednesday evening through Saturday morning, but we actually took a 36, 38 hour train ride between Minnesota and Seattle with
Hmm. Hmm.
about 16, 17 of us in total. So it also made it for like, okay, a little less good sleep on the way coming in. Train sleep was a
Hmm.
little rougher than I thought it might be for
It was
me.
rough. It was rough.
But it was also really invaluable time with different people.
I'm glad we had the experience. Maybe I would not want to have the experience again. but I am glad that I had the experience.
Definitely love the Amtrak train. If it's in Seattle again in the future, hit me up and I will be organizing at least one train ride on the way there. Which, if you don't know, share fare tickets, if you have 8 people, it's like a 60% discount, 50% discount
Nice.
on train tickets. So it also made it very affordable to do things in
For
groups.
me in the future, I think I might be willing to do one way. I don't know if I would do both
Which
ways.
way would you do it?
I'd probably do there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'd probably do
I'm
there.
so glad the Lord saved my butt on this. I was gonna have us arrive on the train like the afternoon of the conference, and
Oh,
we would have
okay.
just been like rushing from the train station to our Airbnbs, been exhausted, going to the conference. Instead, we got there through just what tickets ended up being available a day earlier, which allowed us to settle
Yeah.
in, get a good night of sleep, be a
Yeah,
little
that was
more rested
better.
coming in.
That was better. That was better. One thing, and I think if you take the train, learn to love the lounge slash observation car. Just like the best part.
Yeah, it was really great.
And also bring your own food
Oh,
and plan with your own
bring
food.
friends who are good at planning that food. It worked really
That is true.
well. We had
It did.
just such an amazing crew. In some ways, both the train ride, the Airbnb, it's just a really beautiful expression of, the church, the people of God as community. Us, each person bringing their different skills and capacities and serving one another. And so I think everybody just left feeling very loved.
Yeah, agreed, agreed.
Revoice conference, I know last year we were like, wow, they nailed the schedule, keep it going. And I think they did. They just copy pasted the schedule into this year.
Yeah, schedule's great.
The
One,
only thing I was like, oh, because in Seattle, we had people coming
mhm,
from the East Coast, which is a 3 hour time difference. Whereas
mhm.
before, it's often been like Texas, St. Louis, Missouri, like
Yeah,
a little bit more
yeah.
central time zones.
Mhm, mhm.
And so I think that might have contributed to people's just general tiredness was the larger time change going to the West
Yeah, I would agree
Coast.
with that.
I don't know what to
Yeah.
do about it, but it just did seem a factor why everybody was a little more tired.
It is one benefit for that, the kind of the middle part of the US with
Mm-hmm.
time zones. Yeah,
So churches, host it,
I
please.
know. Where are you? Yeah, come on, people. One, one thing that I would prefer is if this is related to affinity groups. In previous years, at least I think 2 years ago in Columbus, before every lunch affinity group time, they had people come up and announce the affinity groups and kind of talk about it. I wish they would have that happen this year as well because that kind of impact by not talking about it and leaving things just on the app, it impacted how many people came to attend certain groups. So I'm going to suggest when I do the Revoice survey that they incorporate more of that sort of engagement with people announcing these are the affinity groups, come meet me if you need to. This is what's happening, those sort of things. Yeah.
Yeah, I think those are all the thoughts off the top of my head. There's so much more that could
Can
be
we,
said.
before we end, can we talk about ways people can pray for side B movement or community, kind of both
Yeah.
Revoice? Yeah. So one thing I'm going to mention, I think it'd be good if people pray around how like relating gender minorities and sexual minorities in the side B space and at Revoice
Mm-hmm.
because this is sort of a an issue of tension in some ways, but also not a lot of clarity. So that's something to pray for.
That's been a
Revoice is not the
long.
side B movement. Revoice is not the side B movement, but it's definitely a large player in the movement. So we pray for both the movement and the Revoice in particular as an organization. Yeah, I'd also love if people would pray for more African engagement in particular. We're so thankful from Wendia, but I think that'd be a great addition if there's more Africans who can participate and come. There's a problem with visas, and as the US raises visa costs, it makes it harder for people to come from outside the US to revoice. It's something else. You can also pray, there's this praying about unity and diversity sort of in the movement, how we relate what should unify us and what makes us different. That's another something else that's kind of prominent that's emerging. So, and of course, I'm going to say keep praying for people, greater openness to different types of kinship vocation beyond marriage, and that's conversation. We talk a lot about that in this podcast in particular, but that's something that's still new to some people, and maybe many people in the world. And so we're trying to have that conversation grow and be stronger so people can see more possibilities. So,
Hmm. I would recommend for anyone who went to Revoice to make sure to look over Janelle Look's post conference prayer exercise in the follow up email. It includes just really valuable points on different ways to take times to process stuff in prayer. She has a link to Ignatian Prayer of Examine and an audio version of that, as well as some just very practical tips on resting well, processing well, praying well if you're feeling just kind of burdened by anything. There's some links to some scriptures, some psalms that could be good resources. And if you didn't go to the conference, but you know someone who did, reach out to them. Show your loving curiosity about their experience. Even if you are suspicious of Revoice and Side B and QSSA conversations in Christianity, take a posture of listening and be
charity.
open to how God works, even in spaces that might make us uncomfortable or even might have made your friend uncomfortable.
Can I also add, this is not a prayer request exactly, but continued encouragement for queer SSA people who are side B. Keep inviting your straight friends to come to the conference. We actually, one of our friends invited one of his best friends who is straight to the conference and to our house. I think it was really moving for this friend, and this friend really came away with a new perspective. Thank you, David Frank, for talking with him, notably. I think that was a great conversation, but definitely something new. And this is one way to keep connecting, keep building bridges, changing hearts and minds, changing even sometimes systems and structures depending on who the person is. And that we had that with our friend Joel Carini, who's been on the podcast as well. Yeah, straight people want many of them want to engage in these conversations around sexuality and gender, but they often don't know how. They don't know the space, or they're worried, or they're nervous, or they're
Mm,
confused, or they're like, what is the theology of side B? Like all of these things are questions, and Revoice and similar spaces are a good space to
yeah,
help them
yeah, I think so.
engage and think and meet people. So
Yeah, I think they do good work to try to make it both accessible for people who are very new to the space, as well as, yeah, just valuable for those who've been many, many times.
yeah, agreed.
I
Yeah,
think that's all.
yeah.
Oh, I after this, I might try to include. I tried to grab a few videos of some people's to the conference while I was still on the train with them, where they
Okay.
couldn't escape. So you might get some of those at the end. And additionally, seriously, thank you, the entire Revoice team. We know that in it, even if it's your job to help put on this conference, it is truly a labor of love, and
hmm
we feel that love. So just grateful for all of you.
Amen.
Bye bye.
Bye, everyone.
What was your experience of Revoice like? Oh no.
Well, how was your guys' Revoice experience?
Oh, a Revoice experience. Mitch, I'll let you go first.
I thought it was pretty good. Um, didn't have too many expectations coming in. Had a good time. Met a couple people. I loved the main sessions.
Yeah, yeah. The Lord decided to wreck me and challenge me and make me uncomfortable and continue to make me uncomfortable and then make me uncomfortable again. And right now I sound like, wow, I'm so happy about it. I'm not happy about it, but it's probably good for me. Okay, bye.
How was your time at Revoice?
It was great. Taking the train with many people was fun. The community was very welcoming and genuine to me. Even as a straight person, yay, fun.